everybody, welcome to the Snow West Show. We're here at the Utah Snowmobile Show broadcasting, and we are we're here with Nate Zollinger from ZBroz Racing. God, Nate, we go way back. We're similar age. I think I'm older than you, but
well,
we kind of
46,
47. So
yeah,
we
close.
Came up through the sport kind of together and did a lot of similar things, and kind of paths have crossed a lot of times.
Yep.
But I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, and we've talked. We talked this spring when you announced your reacquisition of ZBroz.
Yep. From
Hoonigan, formerly Wheel Pros. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who you bought it from. Wheel Pros, Hoonigan.
It's pretty confusing.
Yeah, it got really confusing, all of that. But what I really want to talk to you about is the racing days, the hill climb racing days.
Oh man.
You lived through the heyday of the sport, in my opinion. Tube chassis, full mod, hand-built sleds.
I think in a lot of ways that early and late 90s and early 2000 eras, that decade was just, it's unlike today, is all I can say. I mean, not that the racing that happens today and the stuff that the guys are doing isn't amazing, because what they're able to do and the capability of the athletes today is obviously superior or greater, because they have the equipment that just allows them to do phenomenal things. I stand on the hill at Jackson every year and watch them, just because growing up around it and then racing for roughly a decade, you get addicted to it. So I want to feel that excitement once a year and show up and race a little bit of vintage at Jackson and at the Beaver Hill Climb that ZBroz has sponsored for the last few years. But that late 90s for me, I started in 98. So it's interesting, because me and my brother's journey related to racing started, I was 16 years old. I remember, between 15 and 16 years old, and RMSHA at the time, back in these days, there was no such thing as juniors. There was no such thing as semi-pro. There was no, for that year in 98, they actually did kind of like a first year's class, which allowed you to qualify for Jackson. And I did race in that at Soda Springs in 98, my very first race of my, snowmobile career. But you were racing against pros in every other class. So I was racing against David Shepard and Rick Ward and Mark Thompson and, Sid Zollinger and Travis Zollinger and some of my relatives, Tony and, I don't know, the list goes on and on. Todd Tupper when he was, younger, and everybody was younger.
Kirk Williamson.
Kirk Williamson, who I was going to bring up. And that's kind of how we got our start. Is I wanted to race when I was 16, but they didn't have a class. And I remember I went and bought a snowmobile specific for to be able to race that year, and they ended up not doing it. RMSHA couldn't get, I think, the insurance, or it was different back then, and they're like, no, you have to be 18. So I kind of lit the fire that year in my mind. I was like, it'd be fun to race. We'd been to Jackson. We were on the hill crew. We were catching sleds. Mm-hmm. At the time, I think Mark Thompson was still working for us at Zollinger Cold Storage. And he would, I think 91 or 92, he had won the championship somewhere around there. And I was just a little kid. I remember riding around on a three-wheeler with him at some grass drags. There's so many memories that flood back of my early, snowmobile childhood. But fast forward, I'm a senior in high school. A friend that we met through Kirk Williamson. Kirk Williamson was really the catalyst that brought us into the racing world. He was, multi-time champion, was pretty dominant. Those few years before that, he had some dominating years on a Holtz chassis, and then he started building his own chassis. He had a friend, his name was Chad Clausen, still lives here in Utah, blew his knee out playing softball and had a chassis. And I was like, and Kirk, we'd met Kirk, and he's like, you should buy that chassis from Chad. So, scraped, every dime that I owned, and my father and my brothers all helped, and I bought that chassis, and I started going to the mountains in Logan with Kirk and basically just chasing him on race courses. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about, the RMSHA circuit. I only knew the who's who of RMSHA, the Rick Wards and the famous guys like Kirk at the time. But I I didn't know anything. I was completely clueless. And I showed up to that Soda Springs race, and I had that tube chassis, and then I had a Summit, because that year I was on a Skidoo. And won that juniors class, and actually won 600 mod in the pro class, like right out of the gates. I was like, what the heck?
Easier than it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I was like, this is nothing, you know? I'm like, come on, guys, you know? And I remember Chad Clausen, who was part of the race team of Kirk there, he came up to me after the race, and he was like, I just want you to know, you don't blow that in anybody's face. You know, he was a very humble type guy. And, you know, Kirk had a long history, and I'm sure it was tough for him because showed up and won right away. And I didn't feel like I was fast, but I won right out of the gates. And that juniors, or the first year's class, this is the funniest story of it all. So I win 6 mod. I win the juniors, or not juniors, the first year's class, which qualifies you for Jackson. Come down to the pits. And the pits back then, I'm telling you, they were different than they are now.
In Soda?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Come down to the pits. And it's still some of the same rules, but there was it Chris McCombs was the tech guy back then. I get off my sled, I park it kind of in the side of the pits, you know, I'm all excited and jacked up, and walk away, and my brother Anthony was there, and Chris is like, hey, you got to move that sled right now. He's like, you got to move it right now. And he's like, I don't have a helmet, I can't move it. He's like, you move that sled or I'm throwing it out. So Anthony's like, oh, you know, we didn't know. Starts it up, moves it. He's like, you just got him disqualified.
Real quick, I just want to say thanks to the companies that support the Snow West Show. Please support these companies and that are involved in the snowmobile industry. First off, Fly Racing is the #1 gear brand in Supercross and Motocross, and they bring that same product innovation to snowmobiling. Whether it's monosuits, helmets, boots, gloves, or goggles, Fly Racing has you covered for your snowmobile gear head to toe. Check them out at flyracing.com or Fly Racing Snow on socials. And thanks to DV Inc. for supporting the show. Head on over to dvinc.com and check out their custom wrap builder with their new interactive design tools that make designing and customizing wraps easy. Their new colorizer tool randomizes color combinations until you land on the look you love. Then try the design mixer tool to see all the DV Inc. designs in the colors you've selected. Check it out at dvinc.com. And thanks to Tempest Optics, these goggles feature an automatic lens heating system that sets the bar for fog prevention. We wear them. They just signed Steve Martin. They have a huge assortment of lens options. They're easy to swap. We get 3 to 5 rides on a single charge out of these, and they will stay charged for a very long time. No on and off switch, no external battery pack, no power cords. Just charge them and ride. Check them out at tempestoptics.com and on social media. And welcome to the show, EasyLink. We've seen EasyLink stuff on trucks, snowmobiles, and UTVs for a while now. EasyLink connects your truck, your UTV, or your snowmobile with one device, making diagnostics, recalibrations, flash support, and factory functions easier than ever. One device, one platform, all your machines connected with EasyLink. See more at easylink.com. And thanks to Caliber Products. They've been the leader in trailer glides and snowmobile shop wheels for years, but did you know they also do flooring for trailers and shops, ramps, and a bunch of other accessories? One of the coolest things that we've seen is the Traction Ladder HD. This allows your track to engage with the ramp sooner for safer, more controlled loading on any sled deck ramp or bed loading ramp. Check out all the products Caliber offers at caliberproductsinc.com. Now back to the show.
Starts it up, moves it. He's like, you just got him disqualified. So he threw me out of that.
Because he told Anthony to move your sled?
Yeah. So he was testing him, because the rules were if you didn't have a helmet and a tether, which you put the tether on, didn't have a helmet. So I got thrown out right out the gates. So I'm just like, and it's not really Anthony's fault, because he's like, I was doing what the guy was telling me.
Yeah, that's a little deceptive.
So right out the gates, I'm just like, whatever. There's more races to come. Show up to Preston, race 2. You know, I'm like, dude, I got speed. I'm going to win. Every run, freaking to the bar, and sled just won't pull. I remember come down, and I got into qualifying. I qualified fine, you know, like top 3. Finals, the sled just went flat. Turned out I had rollers go bad in my primary, but I remember coming down and just being so pissed off that I lost. And I didn't know why, because I didn't have that technical background, right? And Kirk was, you know, he was trying to take care of his own sleds and win races. And just help me on the side. And I had my brothers, and that was the start for us. But after I went to Soda Springs and won, and then went to Preston and, you know, basically failed, I can't remember what the third race was, but ended up showing up there and won, I think, 2 classes at my third race. And because of that, I immediately had points to qualify for Jackson. Because usually, rookie, 18-year-old kid, you're not going to show up and win anything. You'd be lucky to get on the podium. 18 years old, everybody else is seasoned and, have all this nice equipment. And I had a good sled. Don't get me wrong, it was a good sled, but obviously it was lacking maintenance. I was like, all I got to do is ride. Oh, wait, no, I got to work on this thing.
Keep this thing running?
Every week, you ride for 5 hours or whatever on a course, and then you got to put 5 hours into maintenance, going through your clutches and going through, because those chassis back then they're not like the sleds now where they have the reliability and longevity.
Yeah.
I mean, the motors were always on the verge of exploding or breaking. The clutching was, not as good as it is now. I mean, just little things. And so it was like a learning curve like this. We were just thrown into the deep end. And luckily my brothers, after my first race, I remember Ryan and Anthony being like, dude, if you can win, we're going to race because we're as good as riders as you. You know what I mean?
Well, I was going to ask you that.
They were just
did Anthony and Ryan start that year?
Yeah, they later in the season they did. But not they didn't end up racing. I'm trying to think Ryan ended up coming to Preston, I think, and he had like I'm trying to remember. It was like a Rotax 800 motor in a kind of like a old school aluminum chassis that, had like a 97 bulkhead on it. Mm-hmm. But it had a kind of a full hood. And I remember we used to make fun of that sled because we would call it the chopper because Ryan's tall. He's like 6'4", lanky guy. And he had some big, tall risers on it to get the bars up high enough because sleds back then all had low bars. Yeah. And so we called that sled chopper because it looked like it was a Harley when you're sitting on it because the bars were like up here. And so, as I recall, he ended up getting qualified for Jackson. And I don't remember if Anthony raced Jackson that year. But that was our year of racing, and obviously the highlight for me was getting to Jackson. And I think I only had 2 classes. It was 6 and 7 mod, as I recall, and
ended up on that same tube chassis. Still.
On that same tube chassis, which was kind of a precursor to what tube chassis we ended up building the following year. But I went to Jackson. Had success leading up to Jackson, got to Jackson. I was a rookie, ended up winning Jackson, like won 6 mod and 7 mod, and then won the King. Right? I remember it was terrible conditions. I'm pretty sure for qualifying 6 mod, I was first guy out, and I remember just being like so scared. I was just like praying. I was just like, holy crap! Like, this is the big show, right? Don't screw it up. It was icy, but we had titanium. We had good setup, and went out first run up and over the top. I was like, I didn't remember anything. I don't remember breathing. I don't remember seeing anything. I just remember being like, did I hit all the gates? Like, did I seriously just go over Jackson? So I ended up, making both my runs, getting qualified, won both those classes in finals, and then ended up winning the King. I was just like blown away. 18-year-old kid, didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Rookie sensation.
Just won Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Had a good rest of the year, and then I left. I went on a mission. So served a mission for 2 years. I was gone from the world of snowmobiling, came back, and my brothers stayed racing. And the history of Anthony and Ryan having tons of success for those 2 years. Mm-hmm. Ryan swept Jackson in 2001. First time that was done. And that was on the better chassis. He wouldn't have done it if I was there. That's what I tell him.
Okay. Yeah. But he may not have, a lot of truth to that.
No, I think Ryan was so dialed that I don't know that anybody could stop him.
Dude, that year that he swept Jackson, that was some phenomenal racing. And the whole season, because he had a really good season, but Jackson in particular. I remember, let's see, because I got home from my mission in 99. And then was going to those races. I actually raced 99-2000 season
On an Arctic Cat or?
On an Arctic Cat
Yep.
with Brett Rasmussen.
Yep.
We built a project sled for the magazine and raced that, and then I raced a stock class. But I didn't.
So like a 1M chassis maybe?
No, back then it was the Powder Special.
Oh, okay.
Chassis.
1Ms I guess hadn't come around yet.
No, it was right. It was the chassis right before
Brett
1M.
had some pretty cool like 1M chassis that were all carbon fiber.
Yeah, he built some really cool stuff.
I remember those. Black Diamond days.
Ryan at Jackson that year was just incredible. And this is coming off the heels of Rick Ward. And Rick Ward's still real dominant
Darren
force
and
there. Yeah.
I mean, so many good racers.
Yeah, a lot of good competition that year. So when did you all start running the Polaris engine setup and build those tube chassis maroon sleds?
So Skidoo engines I would say were 98 and 99. And then 2000 and 2001 is when we transitioned to the Polaris motors, the Polaris bottom end.
And did you start working with Polaris and the race department on that, or just kind of you did something
Yeah, I mean, we were still working with Kirk a little bit, but we had somewhat separated ourselves in that 2001 era, like right as the year before I came home from my mission. So we only had 2 or 3 years where we worked with Kirk, and then he was sort of aging out in a sense from racing, and his whole goal was, I want to work on the sleds. They take so much work. Let's build the sleds, and I'll help work on them. And he was still racing certain races, but was not as focused, I think, on racing, and wanted to build they built the Savant chassis, and they had sold, I don't know, maybe a dozen of them that year. The hard thing about those 2 years, that's why you need to get Ryan on here and Lance probably, because I was on my mission. Mm-hmm. So I lost those 2 years of them building those chassis, and that process with Kirk was just, for me, I don't know anything about it. You know what I mean? I remember the chassis because I rode them for a couple of years before I guess, in a sense, got kicked off the Polaris team.
Yeah, because that's when you went to Arctic Cat.
Yeah, so came home from my mission, 2002, showed up at Jackson, raced I think only 1 or 2 races. I came back late November, showed up at Jackson, won a second championship, and had a great season, had a whole bunch of wins and king titles, and went to Heydays. And I remember talking with the race director at the time, and he actually just passed away, unfortunately. Was a good guy. He used to work at Skidoo. He was at Skidoo when I was on a Skidoo, but I never had support that first year. I had zero sponsorship, let's say. Mm-hmm. We had some support from Polaris in that 2002 or 2002 era. But they had support in, I guess, 2000, 2001. And when I say support, I would say we got a couple motors, and we got a parts budget of $500 a piece. So
I'll bet that went pretty far with you guys.
Yeah, so I mean, and maybe it was more. I don't know for sure because I wasn't here, but came back. We were on those chassis. We had to switch to full hoods and to get contingency, and really that was the saving thing for us, like racing back then. Besides the purses, it was contingency that was paying us and helping to pay the bills, but never really had factory support. Not like I've never gotten a free snowmobile in my life, like as a racer, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
I mean, you think
considering all the championships and
and by the time I retired, have six world championships and on 3 different brands, and fast forward, I kind of got told there was no budget for 2003 season, so I didn't race. I didn't race that year at all.
So that's what you mean by getting kicked off the Polaris team?
Well, there was no support, and I think they just thought we would just keep doing it ourselves and paying for everything. And we were like, well, if there's no support, what's the point in racing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not like we were getting free snowmobiles and 15 motors and a $5,000 budget, because back then that would go a long ways, but we weren't getting anything. So I'm not going to race if I'm not getting any help. I had some sponsor support from Stud Boy and Amsoil and Union Bay. They would have helped us and stuff like that. But so that winter I didn't race, and by then my brothers had quit. Ryan had kind of had his 2 or 3 good years, and he was like, I'm done. I want to quit while I'm winning. I don't want to race forever. And obviously I had more of the passion to race, and so they stayed involved. But I didn't race that year. But that's when I hooked up with Brett Rasmussen, and Brett got me on an Arctic Cat and took me out riding. And so then I came back in 04. I think it was the 04 season, 03 or 03, 04, because you race kind of like between the 2 years.
Yeah.
Starting in December and January back then, and I got so I got a deal from Arctic Cat, and that was the first like actual support I ever got was from Arctic Cat. So I'm really grateful to them. But at that point, I'd already raced a Skidoo motor and a Polaris motor, and now I'm on an Arctic Cat, and it was the Fire Cat, so it was narrow track, and those sleds were freaking fast.
Yeah.
Like that F7 was like dynamite. That motor, and I always did better on the 700s anyway. I was never very good on a big bore. So it was perfect for me. And I remember that year we raced at Croydon, and I remember being so pissed off because at Croydon I had a chance to win a king title, and I screwed up. And I can't even remember who won, which is really sad. But somebody on an Arctic Cat won, and that was the first king title for an Arctic Cat. People had won classes, but they'd never won a king. And I was like so mad because I really wanted that, just like personally, which is totally like, type A personality, lack of humility. And so I learned a lot of lessons, I guess I should say. But I did end up winning a world championship at Jackson on an Arctic Cat. So that kind of sealed the deal for me with Arctic Cat, and I've pretty much been with them ever since.
Yeah, and you had a good run there. That was
from a support standpoint.
That was a good time to join in with Arctic Cat, because that was when the M's were coming out. Did you race the 1M along with that Fire Cat?
I never raced a 1M.
Just right into that Fire Cat and M.
Went from Fire Cat right to M Series, and we built some pretty cool M Series chassis, and had another championship and a bunch of wins and a good season on the M Series. We were building semi-custom. We were using the bulkhead, and if you remember, those chassis kind of had a tunnel that was like kicked, and you didn't have good clearance for traction aids and stuff like that. And back then we could actually run good traction aids like titanium, and so we built a custom tunnel that was just a tunnel skin, and then we actually started bolting chromoly footrests on like our old tube chassis. So we built like a big footrest area that went on the tunnel, and I'd actually like to try and find one of those chassis if I could and get one back, because I did like those chassis. We moved the post forward. We built I can't remember what we did on the tank, but I know we were doing like fuel foam in the tank, where we actually we filled the tank like half full with foam and then covered in like a resin, so we only had like a 3-gallon tank because we were trying to save weight. And I built
keep fuel around the pickup.
Yeah, I built 4 of those with Tyler Ropoletto, another like hill climb name. Kim Ropoletto was a past world champion, and he was one of my best friends growing up. So we raced together for a few years. He actually raced for Max at Tri-City for a little while. And I mean, there's like, honestly, we could just spend the whole podcast talking about stories, from 98
good with that.
To 2005, because there's like that whole era. And then when we were on Polaris, and I think it was 2004, no, 2000 would have been 2002 still. But when was the Pro X? When did the Pro X come out?
That was 03, wasn't it?
So,
or was it no? Maybe 04.
So I was hill climbing, and Tyler wanted to race snowcross, so we both bought short tracks, and we raced the RMX.
RMX CRC, and then MWR.
Yeah, we raced the RMX like just a few select races, and we had Pro X's. And then I ended up going back east and racing snowcross in the semi-pro class, and then just coming out for Jackson. And then I think that was the only race I raced that year. I raced semi-pro snowcross with Polaris, and I did have a little bit of help from them. Still was buying snowmobiles, and I raced with Noel Kohansky. So we were like the privateer team. Noel had some factory support, and I just bought a few sleds, on a racer deal, and drove out and lived in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and raced the WSA series that year. But the year before, I only went to 2 snowcross races, and I'm pretty sure Chris Brandt was at the Deadwood race, if I remember.
Yep. Yeah, because that's where he started. Was trying to, because we did a podcast at Heydays, and so he was telling similar stories And he's like, I decided I wanted to be a pro snowmobiler, but there weren't paid athletes back then. There were no sponsorship deals. So the only way to get into it was to race. So he started out racing snowcross. And he's like, nope, I'm not doing that.
I remember, I'm pretty sure Chris was at Deadwood that year, but me and Tyler, we went to Hoonigan, Montana, and actually I had broken Tyler's snowmobile testing and broken a set of shocks. And I think they were Ride FX shocks back then, if I remember right, and they were terrible. And he ended up, because we knew Max is like, hey, let me build some shocks for you. And Tyler had one of the first set of Walker Evans shocks put on a snowcross sled.
Really? I remember the year that Max started doing that.
And we had it in Hoonigan, Montana, and I got to hang out with Walker Evans and Max, and those guys were kind of like the gods of the snowmobile world. Well, Walker really wasn't, because he was coming from the off-road world, but growing up in the West, I knew of Walker Evans really well. So that was a pretty cool weekend, to be honest, to hang out with Walker and to watch Tyler get a race some of the first Walker Evans shocks on a snowcross buggy, because Max was building a few for RMKs, but it was like very limited,
Well, back around that era, Darren and Rick would race snowcross too as a warm-up to hill climb.
Yep.
A lot of the hill climbers would go race that. And I think it got to a point where the cross-country and the snowcross circuits in the West were kind of crashing in on the hill climb circuit because there were differences in payouts.
You couldn't do both.
You
could do maybe a few cross-country races or a few snowcross races, and then you had to race hill climb.
So neither circuit was thriving.
No.
But trying to survive. And Max, it's funny you bring up Max. I got his cell number from somebody last year. I want to get him on and do a show. I tell people the highlight of my career was winter of '96. And we used to do the Deep Powder Challenge as a Snow West feature, where we would bring 2 dealerships from each brand up to Island Park, where we do all of our testing. The dealers could set up their snowmobiles any way they wanted, as long as it's stock parameters, do all the factory clutching and that. And then we would go ride it and set up courses and run stopwatches and radars and all sorts of timing. Yeah. And we ran that, and Max had been up there with us a couple of years. And that particular year, I was doing all the riding. So jumping around on all 4 brands, racing the Yamahas up this makeshift hill climb course and everything. And Max, after that event, offers me a spot on his hill climb team. It's like, you need to come race with us.
Dude, that was like the best team to be on.
Yeah, and but then I took off and went on my mission to New York, and it's like, turn Max down. Like, oh shoot! But yeah, that's like the highlight of my career.
Yeah, Max is a freaking stud. Like, I never raced for Max, but always raced against Max, and he was just a true gentleman. You know what I mean? And Tyler ended up working for him and racing for him, and so I got to know Max really well. And it's funny because I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. I'm standing on the top of Jackson, and my phone, this random number keeps ringing in. And so the second time it called, I'm like, well, I'll answer it. There's nothing going on. We were on a break, and it's Max Maxidon. He's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, I just want to let you know, I love seeing you on the top of the hill, and you're doing a great job, and blah, blah, blah. And I probably hadn't talked to him in 10 years, at least. And so Max, rung me up. So I got his cell phone if you need it.
Oh, that's
But you got it now. So
I got it now. I can't remember where I got it from.
But it was hilarious because it was just out of the blue, right? And so he's just like, I just want to say hi. And, I asked him how he was doing. And he's running that ranch out there in Tennessee or...
Yeah, he left the West altogether, just out here.
After the Tri-City, thing kind of went away. I think he worked at Century Equipment with his brother for a while and then went out to the east, but Max is a stud. So you
probably a lot less stress. But yeah, Max is on the short list. We want to get him on. And
I still remember their dealership, before. Now it's part of the Young campus, or it's rubble underneath or whatever, but that dealership was so nice. And I remember he had a nice shop, and then he had a little square room in the middle of the shop, and that was Max's room.
Yep.
And nobody was allowed to go in there unless Max took you into the room.
Yep.
And I don't know if I ever even got to go in the room, to be honest. But
Max took Steve Janes and I in there a couple times to show us some stuff he was working on. And
he was a wizard.
He was, yeah. And shops like Tri-City, and then Jack Strother's place in Boise, Carl Cycle, and there's numerous other ones.
Those two were battling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, that so much development on the OEM sleds came out of shops like that because the race department was pushing the envelope so hard back then in the 2000s and in the 90s.
And everything was so custom, you know. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about building the tube chassis and like that whole process, and you know, even the, you know, the different power plants, but the chassis that we have still today, because we still have two chassis, one with a 700 and one with a 910, and I've raced them the last couple of years at Jackson in the vintage class, and it's like Polaris bottom end, billet cylinders, billet head, you know, Union Bay built motor.
Yeah, Union Bay top end, right?
Skidoo rave valves, Arctic Cat clutching. It was like, and then hand built chassis. So it's like,
and
it really is a Skidoo pole cat. You know what I mean? Like, like it's not. Yeah, we have Polaris hoods on them now because that was kind of the era when we had those chassis, but we were using whatever we could find that was the best. Like that Bearcat secondary that was larger, we'd get a little bit better engagement. They had roller versions and they had button versions. Those things worked, I mean, almost as good as anything today.
Yeah.
I mean.
But you don't see that anymore in the race circuit. You don't see that level of hand-built mod sled.
And crossing over from brand to brand to brand, you know, like pulling parts from one manufacturer. I mean, hand building our own chain case assembly. It wasn't, I mean, it was one-off. We were machining our own suspension rails. There was no such thing as an Ice Age rail you could just go buy that was race ready. So it was like we were having a local machine shop cut the M10 rails for us, and they were not cheap. I know that.
Oh yeah.
Those chassis were not cheap, but we did have, and it's a fun story to tell because in the heyday when me and Anthony and Ryan were racing and Lance was managing the team, the ZBroz race team, we were going to these races, and I don't want to sound cocky or anything like that, but we were winning.
You were
first, second, and third in all four mod classes. So it was like, I mean, there was a few events. I remember Pocatello was one that I still have a memory of, where we won first, second, and third in all four mod classes, and just completely dominated. And we were making pretty good money, like more than you would think. And that was what, you know, it wasn't really the money. It was just that type A personality. You're so competitive that you don't want to lose.
Especially against your brother.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it was like, you know, Anthony would win this class, and I would win that class, and Ryan win the other class, and the other two guys, second and third, was me and Ryan behind whoever was the winner, you know, or it was just, it was fun.
So you have 6 world championships. What does Anthony and Ryan have?
I think Anthony has 4, and Ryan has, I think, 7.
Yeah.
So
the dude was dominant.
In like 3 or 4 years, you know, like it was just.
Do you think most of that is because of those chassis?
6 years, I guess. I mean, 98 was the start of it. So, but you got to, like, for me, I missed 2 years, and then I didn't race in 2003, 2004, or whatever. And
then he went snow crossing.
And then I was snow crossing. So, I've never been very good at. I have bad ADD, I guess. Right? Like,
I want to try this. I want to try this.
I couldn't focus, and I wanted to race snow cross, and I actually had pretty good success in the semi-pro class back there. And I got to race with. Me and Levi got to be good buddies because we were both privateers for Polaris. We weren't part of the factory program, but you know, I think I ended up with like 2/3 that year in out of the 3 classes. Hurt my knee and was living back there, and I was just like, I don't want to live back here. Like, it's so friggin' cold. All the races, you're freezing your butt off, and we didn't have a very good snow year, so the tracks weren't that good. I mean, but I did get a race at Crandon, and I got a race in Valcourt, and I got a race in all these, you know, epic, you know, snowcross tracks of the 90s and 2000 era.
Which was another heyday. I mean, snowcross in that era was just as cool.
Yeah, Tucker had just moved up to pro that year and won the X Games when he was a semi-pro. And the year before I went out there. So he was like, and Blair was in his heyday, and Carl, I mean, I missed the X Games qualifying because Carl sent me off the berm in Duluth. So thanks a lot, Carl. I appreciate it.
Can't imagine Carl do that. Too nice. It's too nice to send anybody over the berm.
It's my fault, right? Like you leave, it's like last lap, 2 corners, and I get just a tiny bit high on the berm. Next thing I know, I'm off the berm, and Carl's in the qualifying spot. So, I'm a semi-rookie, my first year actually racing snowcross full time. So it was, good memories.
Yeah, great
good memories of failures and good memories of success. That's the world of snowmobiling, I think. If you can't learn to fail,
right,
you probably shouldn't ride a snowmobile. So anybody that wants to get into snowmobiling, learn how to fail, because that's part of the process.
And be okay with getting hurt a little bit. Like, it's going to beat you up.
Yeah, injuries. I mean, I've been pretty lucky, knock on wood, injury-wise. Ankles and knee, injuries here and there, but nothing major.
So this racing heritage with ZBroz, your brothers, Lance, and everybody, this evolves into a company eventually. ZBroz.
Yeah. So it was really like 2000. It was after right when I got home from my mission. I remember working in the warehouse. For those that don't know, me and my family are basically warehousing and cold storage is what my father started, and we've taken that over, and we do a lot of development up in Cache Valley. And so I was working in a warehouse driving a forklift. I was a forklift driver, professional forklift driver right here. And I remember being like, God, this racing thing is so fun, and we're building all these cool parts. We should be selling them. So we actually kind of got our start selling products for sport ATVs, quads, and then snowmobiles at the same time. But we started building our first snowmobile products were 2003.
A-arms, right?
Yep, yep. For the Arctic Cat.
Yep.
For the
we ran it on one of those years of the M series sled.
Yeah, and the F series and the M series, some of those arms were semi-similar.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had would have been like a 45-inch wide front end on my F7 that I was racing. I mean, it's like, it doesn't compute to nowadays.
No.
But I will tell you this, riding that old tube chassis, even today, on a race course, is pretty freaking fast.
Well, yeah, you guys show up and run these vintage classes, and
our times to the first catwalk on the same course is not that far off of, the top pro times. Like, they're quick on a course.
Yeah.
There's still something to be said about a wide front end on a race course, especially if you're an old guy and you can't ride it like the new guys. So, I mean,
yeah, the risk to reward that these fast guys are doing now, like getting the sled on the edge around the gates.
Yeah, they're just riding on the track and the rear suspension, and it's fun to watch. If you've never been to Jackson or one of the hill climbs, go to one and watch it, because it's fun and it's worth standing right there and watching those guys come by and blow your doors off, basically.
So ZBroz evolves into, you got the brand RSFX, that's your hard parts, and then you come out with the set of shocks.
Yep, and so the first shocks, well, actually the first shocks that we built back in, it'd have to be, because before that, when we were racing, my first set of shocks I had were like some Carreras. I remember I had a set of Carreras, and I destroyed them, and then I modified a set of Fox shocks, which actually the first set of shocks that I personally ever got to take apart was a set of Fox shocks, and it was Brett Jensen.
Oh, really?
At his house in his garage, and it was for just because I was like, well, these aren't working and I need help. And Brett had like a little bench half the size of this table in the corner of his garage with some shocks tools, and he was an Arctic Cat man at that time. I like to remind him about that. But he was the first guy that ever showed me how to take shocks apart. And then we ended up saying, well, if we're building A-arms, we need to build shocks, because we started working with Custom Axis at the time, which a gentleman named Michael Halleck was a partner in Custom Axis, and we built some shocks for the tube chassis. And when I say we, Custom Axis was building them, and we were tuning them and revalving them. And then we partnered up with Sway Away Race Runner in the 05 era, and that was the first, 05 or 06 was the first year that we actually had our own shocks, and it was for an RMK. And they were built by Sway Away, and they had the RSFX label on it. And then we ended up into, the next few years, and it had the RSFX name on everything, and we decided to sell that brand, and that's when Exit became a thing. But essentially, some of the designs and stuff like that were the same. We just started building it ourselves. Brian Skipper was the owner of Sway Away. They're out of San Jose, California, maybe. He's a kind of an off-road legend, one of the names that would be up there with like a Walker Evans. He raced for a lot of years and started building. He had some of the first internal bypass shocks that were ever produced. Some of those designs King has kind of like morphed into, and I think Sway is no longer a thing. I think that company got sold and traded hands, and so it was just a mishmash of all these parts and pieces that we had used on race chassis, and we just started learning. I mean, I always had that desire to like understand suspension and the geometry and how shocks work, and you know, we're raised by farmers. My dad was a farmer growing up, and we're warehousing guys, so we're 100% self-taught. You know, we're just dumb enough to try anything, and just smart enough, I guess, to stick with it to figure things out. And that's where ZBroz Racing was born, you know, from the race heritage, and just me and my brothers wanting to stay. I wanted to stay involved in the industry. I was like, I don't want to run a warehouse. I want to be in the snowmobile and the off-road industry. And so that's how I convinced them to, hey, let me start buying these parts and selling these parts. So I was running a warehouse, and then I had like a little 20 by 30 building that I was putting parts together in and selling them. So that's how it started.
So are Ryan and Anthony and Lance still involved in ZBroz?
Yep, 100%. We started it together, we sold it together, and we bought it back together. So we do have a new partner in the ownership of ZBroz now, which our machine shop, which we never sold when we sold to Wheel Pros at the time, which is now Hoonigan because they changed their name in that 5-year period. We always own the machine shop, and we have a partner. His name is Bryson Swayze, and it's the machine shop, which is called Global Industries, is the name of the machine shop. That's who actually bought the ZBroz Racing brand back.
Okay.
So, but it's essentially ours again.
So 5-6 years ago, Wheel Pros approaches you guys.
Yeah, we were just doing our thing. Like we weren't trying to sell the brand. We weren't even thinking about selling the brand. And there's an individual that's actually lives in Ogden. His name's Bryce Castleton. And I'm trying to think of the other individual's name. It'll come to me, but I'm bad with names. I'm better with faces than names. But we were talking to, he had moved to Ready Lift. He was working, I don't know who he was working for before that. I think Edge Products. He got his start with Edge diesel products. He was in sales and worked his way up to where I think he was, you know, president or manager of Edge Products. And that's where I met him, through a guy named Aaron Stewart.
Yep.
You know Aaron Stewart? He's a good friend of mine still to this day. They sponsored us in those early areas. Edge was a big sponsor, and that's where I met Bryce. And he had moved to Ready Lift. I think he'd got headhunted to bring the Ready Lift out of the red and into the black. And they wanted to get into the UTV scene. And so we were going to private label spring kits for Ready Lift to sell into the UTV world. And that's when, I still can't think of his name right now, but
yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember.
He owns a wheel brand now, or is involved in a wheel brand now, because he was with Wheel Pros. He was like, Bryce, why don't you just have him buy ZBroz? And so that was 5 years ago now, 5.5 years ago, 6 years ago, and we'd never even thought about it. And 6 months later, there was an offer that we accepted, and we're like, yeah, maybe it's time that we get out of it. Our development and the warehousing and stuff was really taking off, and we were busy, and I think my brothers had lost a little bit of interest in it, and really the price was right, and I was willing to stay and manage. And Glenn, who was also a partner at the time, his name's Glenn Floyd, he was the fabricator that we hired. I don't know, we've been together 19 years. It'll be 20 years this next January. So he's been with us forever, and he had bought in early on and had a 10% stake in ZBroz, and he wanted to sell. He wanted to see ZBroz grow a whole bunch, and we were kind of like, it's going to take a big investment to grow the brand more, or it needs to stay where it's at, or we sell it. And so everybody, you know, was like, well, let's sell it. So we sold it. And
this is to, at the time, Wheel Pros, and Wheel Pros was buying up.
They're massive.
Fuel wheels, Black Rhino wheels.
Yep. Fuel,
dozens of
Black Rhino, Asante. I mean, pretty much you name a wheel brand, and they owned it. And then they had bought Ready Lift the year prior, which was a suspension, truck lift company, and they bought us, and they bought, they ended up buying all the four-wheel part stuff from Polaris in that 5-year period. I mean, I don't even know how many brands they had at one point. It was probably like 35.
Yeah, just massive, just acquiring everything in its path.
And I think they were like 1.8 or 1.9 billion in total sales between all the brands. So we just ended up being one of these little random brands, and we grew the first few years, but their focus was definitely UTV. That was where they felt like the future was for the brand. And we like UTVs. We got into the UTVs when the Razor came out, the 800 Razor, the 50-inch, revolution, really, for the UTV world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a whole other story. We got involved in that and started building long travel kits for the Razor 800, which by today's standards is like laughable almost. But so we were about 40% UTV, 50-60% snowmobile, and our focus wasn't really on UTV, but that's what they shifted our focus and pushed us into the UTV market with their distribution. And the first 2 years were really good with Wheel Pros. I mean, and even to this day, everybody that I worked with at Wheel Pros, Hoonigan, great people. Like there's nobody that I worked with that I really have any issue with. They're all great guys, all the employees, Bryce, all those guys, but we just kind of got buried, right, in this list of brands, and ZBroz lost, I think, a lot of its identity. I mean,
it seemed like it from the outside looking in. It seemed like it, but you could tell what was going on.
And there was, I mean, COVID. We sold right at the beginning of COVID, so everything just went crazy, and then all of these brands after COVID just like tanked.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these brands were like 2-3 times what they were previous years, and when they start tanking like that, and they're spending the money, and then these brands are tanking, they start getting rid of people. You know what I mean? Start changing things. I mean, founders and CEOs are getting retired, you know what I mean? Like, there was lots of crap going on, and ZBroz just got lost in the weeds, and we lost employees. We were doing more with less, and we didn't really have any budgets that they would allow us to really do anything. And so the last couple years were just like kind of horrible for the brand in a sense.
Well, and running parallel to that, you have Ken Block, who was just an internet sensation.
Yep.
Just coming out with Gymkhana videos and just owning the internet.
Yep.
With crazy content and building this empire, a media company, which was Hoonigan.
And they bought him. They bought Hoonigan, which it was just like.
Yeah, so Wheel Pros comes in and one more company. Let's buy one more company, and buys Hoonigan from Ken Block. And so now, and then they changed the name from Wheel Pros, which is an identifiable brand with power sports, to Hoonigan. And
doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, it didn't.
I mean, somebody higher up than me in that corporation would have to explain it, but at the time, I think the original founder of Wheel Pros was still with them, and that decision, I really don't understand. It's not like they asked us.
Either.
You know what I mean? It's not. I don't think they really asked. I mean, it was executives that maybe were. I don't know why Hoonigan makes sense.
And it was Hoonigan, if anything, was a clothing. I mean, it was a marketing brand.
Yeah, it was just a marketing.
But
team.
It was a clothing brand, if anything.
But it was an individual.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously with the death of Ken, it was like, talk about a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, Ken was an amazing guy. I mean, massive loss to the industry. He was a snowmobiler too. I mean, he died on a snowmobile, so that's the.
Yeah, we came down and rode with him a couple times during that whole time period, right after the acquisition. And he was just like, "This is great! Like Wheel Pros comes in and buys all this from me, and I can just kind of sit here and make my videos and do whatever races I want."
Yeah, it was a good deal for him, And I had a chance to work with Ken a little bit before his passing, and a great guy. And the Hoonigan guys, for the most part, everybody that I met was amazing. I didn't get to meet everybody, obviously, but just crazy times, right? And we're just lost in the mix, basically. So. When we had the opportunity to buy it back, I never thought that it was going to work, to be honest. Like, I go back, a year or 2 years before today, and I really didn't think I was just going to be done. my contract was up after 5 years.
Okay.
Kind of both me and Glenn, and I think he would have hung around because it made sense for him. But for me, I was like, there's no reason for me to be here any longer. Like, I love the power sports industry. I love the brand. But if I don't have more control, I don't want to be a part of it, basically. So I was essentially quitting. And that's when they were like, no, let's make a deal. And they'd already almost sold it 2 times previous.
I didn't know that.
In that 5-year period. So it was like, and we were always involved in those transactions, and or I was, and you know, Glenn had some information on it, and so it was just weird. It was just like, are you going to sell us? Are you not going to sell us? Like, I was involved in the deals. And I'm like, sell it. Like, I would have sold it the last opportunity. I can't believe they didn't sell it. So when we got involved, I was like, yeah, I would love to have it back, but I don't want to pay that. I know what you wouldn't sell it for, so I know what we're willing to pay for it. And so did we get a good deal? I would say, yeah, we got a good deal.
Well, there's got to be some level of, okay, we want this brand to continue, and we want this brand to be successful, so we know that you're going to do that. And this is full disclosure. If we didn't buy it back, I see it being just flown into a cliff over the next couple years and just dissolved, or fire sold, you know. And so luckily there was enough of the executives and the people that were involved that I knew that I was like, dude, don't let it die. Like, sell it to us. You know, they have so much going on. They went through a Chapter 11 bankruptcy like a year prior to that. I mean, it was a mess. Like, yeah, they had more to worry about than selling ZBroz, right? I'm like, you guys got bigger fish to fry. Like, let us buy the brand back, let us have it, and we'll make something of it. And so you're rolling into your first season.
Yeah,
owning it again.
We got it. I mean, geez, what is it? It's the 11th of October. We took over July 1st, which was actually earlier than we wanted to take over because we didn't even have a building ready. So we took over July 1st, and it was just like July, August, and really part of September, we were doing nothing but trying to move stuff and set up a whole new facility because we're manufacturing a shock line, right? It's not like we're just a box in, box out from suppliers. We're actually machining every single part, you know, to the highest quality and standards we can, and we're hand assembling our shock line, and we're assembling all of our radius rods and all of our UTV parts. So it wasn't like it was a little lift. And part of the issue is they had moved us from a really pretty well set up manufacturing facility in Logan to Ogden, which isn't very far away, but we got absorbed into the Ready Lift program. I lost all my employees. So when we bought it back, luckily Glenn has stuck around. Like I said, I've been with him for 20 years as a friend and basically a brother from another mother, let's say. Justice Purser's my sales manager. He's been with us for like 7 or 8 years now. He started as a powder coater. I mean, my production manager now, who was my customer service manager, Preston, has been with us for 5-6 years. So just maybe right before the acquisition. And then I was able to hire a few people back. So I basically had myself and Glenn and my brother's helping on the side. Mind you, we have multiple businesses that they need to run. So it's not like they have time to help me. They do, and they did, thankfully, but just a handful of guys. And we're moving, 50, 60 semi-loads of product that has to be moved into a building along with all of your equipment, along with finishing the building. July and August are 2 months I kind of want to erase from my memory because it was like, and my wife will attest to this, it was like, wake up. I'm on a order picker putting product away like 10 hours, with 2 or 3 other people. It was just madness. But September, by the end of August, we started building some shocks finally and got our facility kind of set up, and September was pretty awesome, actually. We had a really good month in September.
Good.
So we're back up to speed. The new building is right next door to our machine shop, so we've got 20,000 feet for the machine shop, another 20,000 feet for our production facility, and then we still have a little like 8,000 square foot R&D facility, and it's all on our warehouse campus.
Is that the old race shop? The 8,000?
Yep. Basically where we've been.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother story from how ZBroz started in a tiny office building to a lean-to on the side of another building to a 60 by 60 building that was next to the lean-to moving it into the facility that we're still in, that's our R&D facility, to growing out of that in 2017 to moving it to another 20,000. I mean, we've moved so many times. I just want to like shoot myself in the head, because that's what I say. We're so dumb that we'll do just about anything, but we're smart enough to just stick with something.
Too dumb to quit. Yep.
Yeah, or not smart enough to quit, because that's about how I felt in July and August. You know, some days I was like, man.
Well, I'm excited. And
what am I getting myself into?
Yeah, from the outside looking in, it doesn't really look like you skipped a beat, but to know all of this that happened, and maybe ZBroz just isn't around anymore, but Nate steps in and brings it back, and now you're manufacturing shocks back in Logan.
And it's
like
not
the old days.
not me, it's the team, right? Like, I got employees that I love, so yeah.
So what's the future? Shocks? Going back into bumpers, hard parts, anything?
Everything. Before we sold, we were getting into Jeep and truck stuff, and we had like a whole line for JK, JL, Ram, 2500, 3500, F-150, F-250, Toyota Tacoma. Like, we had specs, but because they bought us and they had also acquired Terraflex and Falcon, we were not allowed to play in that area at all. So the future for ZBroz is all of our snowmobile stuff. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of new stuff that we're working on right now that I would love to release this year, but obviously it's just not possible to do this year. We've got some stuff on the UTV side, a whole bunch of different shock designs. I've got a whole bunch of actually aftermarket guys in the wings. Like, we supply shocks for CMX snow bikes still. There's a whole bunch of guys that we're working with that I want to be a shock supplier for anybody in the industry, because I just want to build cool stuff, right? Like, there's plenty of other options out there. Fox is mega, and they build great stuff. Walker Evans is now owned by Polaris. There's some stuff going on there, I'm sure, with Polaris acquiring them. There's other brands out there that people have to choose from. But in the end, what I try to tell people is ZBroz is started as a family-owned, race-inspired brand. It's now family-owned again, and we're not the biggest, but I think we give our customers the best product that we possibly can, and we're always going to stand behind it. And that's a goal for the future. I mean, I was talking with my sales manager on the way up about just goals and plans, and it's like, right now our plan is we just want to gain back the market share that we lost, because there was a lot of, and we could go in depth, but there's a lot of things that happen when you get acquired by a big brand, with your cost of goods and how they want the brand to be perceived. I mean, we did so much direct to consumer before we sold it, and we were doing, let's say it's 50-50. Well, with Wilpros, we were like 20% direct to consumer, and the rest was through their distribution network. And so it was degrading our cost of goods. It was, it just wasn't. So we had to raise prices on some things, and, so my goal is to drive our prices back down, actually, and sell more direct to consumer and support our dealer network with really good margins. I mean, we have a really good dealer margin. So anybody that's listening that's not a dealer for ZBroz product, call us, because we actually have really good dealer margins. I would say as good or better than anybody else in the industry, and we have no problem helping them on those margins, because we've been working in a two-step program for 5 years. Yeah. And we want to go back to being at shows, going to UTV and snowmobile events, and just being with the people. Because in the end, we're just snowmobilers and UTV guys and Jeep guys and dirt bike guys and mountain bike and mountain bike guys. I mean, we're just
enthusiasts. Yeah.
We're just outdoor enthusiasts, and no different than anybody that walks in here to this building and comes and talks to us. It's like,
well, it's good to have you guys back. It's good. It's cool to have you back owning this business, and
we're not
being
stopping.
here at the shows, being back on the scene here.
Yeah, we're not stopping, and we're excited about the future, and we hope to grow. but growth is based on the economy and the consumers. So, I mean, what I tell every customer that comes in is we have a huge line of products, like more than most people think, and we probably have something for just about everybody. You know, we have a high-end offering of shock absorbers. We have spring kits, so it doesn't matter whether you want to spend a couple $100s or a couple $1,000s. We're going to have a product that's going to help you to enjoy your snowmobile or your UTV more. And that's all we want to do. We want to fix problems and build cool stuff that looks good.
Yeah, that's cool.
In the end, so
well,
pretty simple.
We'll let you get back down to your booth.
Yeah.
Get back down there and start selling some more shocks. Get stuff going on there. But Nate Zollinger, thanks for coming on the show. Great story. And man, like you said, we could sit down and just talk old racing days and old race sleds.
I would love to get Anthony and Lance and Ryan on a podcast.
I'll come down to Logan and we'll do that.
We're not that far away.
No.
Because I guarantee you there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can fight over of what the memories are.
That's what I want to hear. We'll do that. All right, we'll come down and we'll shoot that show for sure.
All right, thanks for
everybody. Everybody listening, thanks for watching this episode. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to us. Go to snowwest.com. You can subscribe to the magazine. We still print Snow West magazine. We got merch, hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and everything. Sign up for that, and subscribe to us on Snow West magazine on YouTube. And thanks for watching.